Scope and objective of the ethnobotany. We have to start from here. So, what is the scope? What is its background? What is its background? How the botany of ethnobotany evolved? What is its ancient history? How this branch of botany has been evolved? And what is the how much of significance it got? And what is the importance at present situation for the welfare of these tribal people and local people? So all these things it's said to be a scope and objectives. Why should we study the ethnobotany? What are the very objectives of the ethnobotanical studies? All this we will learn today. So the ethnobotany, before going to learn ethnobotany, you know what is ethnobotany? Ethnobotany is nothing but the study of plants in relation to ethnic people or aboriginal people or tribal people or ancient people or uncivilized people. Anyhow, the use of plants and plant species in relation to tribal people and local people in relation to their welfare. So this kind of use of plants and the familiarity of plant species by human beings is the date back to beginning of our civilization. It is from the dates back before beginning of the civilization. నాగరికత తెలియక ముందు నుంచే మొక్కల యొక్క వాడకం అనేది మొదలైంది. అది అర్థమైందా? సో దట్ ఈస్ ద పాయింట్ యూ హ్యావ్ టు సెంట్రల్ ఐడియా యూ హ్యావ్ టు క్యాచ్. సో ది ప్రిమిటివ్ మ్యాన్, the primitive man, what we now call them as tribal people, the primitive man closely associated with the nature and directly they depend on plants for his all kind of needs such as food, fuel, medicine, shelter, clothes, for their customs, beliefs, and all those things. They mostly depend on plants only. Hence, so that his life and diet system means food habits, the diet system totally dependent on plants only. Totally dependent on plants only. When they depend totally on plants for all the needs or for all the needs of his survival at all the phases of his life, it made him to acquire a great knowledge about the economic importance of plants, crop plants, medicinal plants, and other use of plants. While they are depending entirely for all on plants, automatically it made him to acquire the total knowledge of the plants. Then this knowledge, after he has enriched with knowledge, this enriched knowledge is transmitted from one generation to another for a long time by word only. By word means by oral means only. So that this kind of unwritten, this was not written, unwritten traditional use of plants and plant products should be documented and to communicate to the scientific community. So this is the main objective of the main objective. Then we will learn the detailed objective. These are the main objectives of the study of ethnobotany. But we have, if you see the scope and background of this branch of botany, the earliest records of use of biological products and primarily herbs in the prevention of and cure of diseases in India were found in Rigveda, which is believed to have been written between 3500 to 1800 BC. You know, all BC, years of BC comes a higher number to least number BCs, whereas AC or AD, it starts from lower number to higher number. So the knowledge of use of plants for curing diseases, that is about medicinal plants, for medicinal plants, especially herbs. So this herbal medicine, you can say herbal medicine, or the use of plants, or the use of plants to curing various diseases or ailments, that is medicinal use of plants, is believed to have that that was, you can see, or it is believed to have the starting in Rigveda. So this is the first documentary evidence, the first documentary evidence of use of medicinal plants or other plants in Rigveda. You can see in Rigveda. So the period of Rigveda is 3500 to 1800 BC, and also a more comprehensive account of plant-based drugs. Plant-based drugs, a comprehensive account on plant-based drugs were also found in the Atharvana Veda. Atharvana Veda. The second one is Atharvana Veda. The traditional documentary traces, you can see, you can trace the documentary evidences in Rigveda, also some in Atharvana Veda. Later you can see the third one is eight parts of Ayurveda. Ayurveda Grantha was documented in 8 parts or 8 volumes. You can see the next documentary evidences about the use of plants, especially medicinal plants, in 8 volumes or 8 parts of Ayurveda. Ayurveda is the traditional system of medicine in India. This is originated in India only, that was given by rishis, and now this Ayurveda is disseminated to other countries of the world, especially in China. In China, Ayurveda is being widely used, rather Indians, Though it was born in India, but the use of Ayurveda is high in China more than India. So the 8 parts of Ayurveda has its documentary evidences of use of herbal medicines, or use of herbals as medicine. So this is probably the period of Ayurveda is 2500 to 900 BC. 2500 to 900 BC. So this is the period of Ayurveda, and you can later, after Ayurveda, the most uh, prominent and pioneer, prominent and pioneer, famous, famous books or grantha, which were given by our ancient rishis, that is Charaka Samhita. Charaka Samhita was written by Charaka Charaka during 1000 to 800 BC. This is this grantha, or this book, consists of mostly medicinal plants and medicinal practices. Medicinal plants and medicinal practices. How can we practice these medicinal plants? How can we use those medicinal plants? Which plant and which practice is used to which disease, to cure which disease? It is uh, detailed. It was described in detail in Charaka Samhita. In Charaka Samhita. Also, the another Grantha which was given by Susruta, which known as Susruta Samhita. Susruta Samhita. This is mostly probably 800 to 700 BC. Susruta is the latter written than Charaka Samhita. Charaka Samhita. Charaka Samhita is most ancient. Later Susruta Samhita. In Susruta Samhita, you can see the use of medicinal plants in surgical practices. Surgical practices in surgery, that is in operations. So, this Charaka Samhita is for medicine, Sushrita Samhita is for surgery. It is for surgery. The most of the medicinal practices are can be seen in Charaka Samhita, and most of the surgical practices can be seen in Susruta Samhita. So these two are the greatest monuments, greatest monumental books in the field of medicine. In the field of medicine, even in those days, during these days, in present days also, the medical students are used to study these books before going to their original books. So that much of great importance they have got. They have got that much of importance. So Charaka Samhita is mostly described about the medicinal practices, that is for medicine. Sushrita Samhita is mostly described about the surgical practices, about surgery. So that is for medicine and this is for surgery. So these are the two monuments that were given by the Rishis from our India, and you can see the uh, description of most of the medicinal plants. So this medicinal plant use you can is as old as the humanity. The use of medicinal plants is as old as humanity. Humanity means the starting of civilization. So, the use of medicinal plants is as old as humanity means we know the use of medicinal plants from the beginning of civilization. When the civilization is how much of old, the use of medicinal plants is also that much of old. So that much of importance it has. So next you can see the ethnobotany is an area of research that deals with the interrelationship of primitive man with surrounding plants in physical and metaphysical needs at every phase of life. This you can see this ethnobotany is the interrelationship. We are going to some depth. Interrelationship with plants and tribal people in all phases of its life, including meta physical life and physical life. Physical life is the physical life is nothing but the present physical needs, physical and biological needs. Metaphysical needs. Metaphysical needs means it comes under their customs, beliefs, taboos, religious taboos that comes under metaphysical. Physical and metaphysical necessities of this tribal people. Then this word, what this word ethnobotany was introduced by introduced by Hans Berger for the first time a century ago, that is during 1895, but it was published in his book in 1896 with 1 year variation. So you can write it as 1896. 1896, that is 1 century ago, harsh Badger, harsh Badger. This word is applied to such knowledge. What kind of knowledge? The use of plants and entire relationship of the medicinal plant, all the of the surrounding plants and tribal people. This word is applied to such people by Harsh Badger. Harsh Badger, HARSHBERGER, Harsh Badger. He belongs to Central America. This scientist belongs to Central America. So a century ago it was introduced, but so this word is derived, ethnic. I have already introduced this word. The word is derived from ethnic. Ethnobotany is derived from ethnic. So which means the ethnic is classification of human beings, classification of human beings into social and cultural groups. So the word ethnic is well illustrated by Singh, scientist. He is the Indian Singh, Singh Singh, in 2004 recently. So he gave a new interpretation for ethnic, the real meaning in the sense of our biological study. Ethnic is nothing but the classification of human beings human beings into social and cultural groups. So this is slightly associated with anthropology. Actually, Singh is an anthropologist. Anthropology. So here in his interpretation we can see two more words. Those are cultural and social. So the classification of people based on their cultural and social social traditional aspects into some groups. So when we classify the people into some groups, we have to take in into consideration that their sociological and cultural aspects. So if you see the social and cultural aspects, the ethnic groups are more primitive. If you take the in the angle of both cultural and social, we are the far foremost civilized people than ethnic people. So on the basis of word ethnic, he could have classified the people into some cultural groups and social groups. So these cultural and while he classifying the people depending on or taken into consideration as cultural and social aspects, the ethnobotanical studies are applied to such people. The ethnobotanical studies has to applied such people, but days, in recent days, or currently, this term is employed to include in the tribal relationship as well as the local people. Local people, not only it is applied not only tribal people alone, it is also applied to local people and other people also. Those who practices the ethnobotanical practices, they are also comes under ethnobotany, because the people are classified into different ethnic and cultural groups. So those who are associated with the practices of plants, so this knowledge is applied to such people. Such people, if you practice this ethnobotanical practice, you will comes under the study of ethnobotany. You will comes under the study of botany. This was applied by the other local people, was applied by Jain and Mugdal in 1999. Jain and Jain and Mudgal, Mudgal, in the year 1999. According to Jain and Mudgal, the knowledge of ethnobotany can be applied to all, not not tribal people alone. It is also applied to such a groups of people which depends on their cultural and sociological groups. That is the important. Who has left? Anil. Anil, why left? Okay. So if you take in India 480, 480 groups of these cultural groups. When we talk about cultural and social groups, so each tribal group is distinguished by their own culture and traditions. So such groups are described nearly 480 groups in India. Nearly 33 groups are inhabited in Andhra Pradesh. So the Botanical Survey of India was initiated the collection and use of ethnobotanical plants in India for the first time during 1970s. During 1970s in India, the ethnobotanical studies were started by Botanical Survey of India. Where is this Botanical Survey of India? Is exist? Where is located Botanical Survey of India? Where is that Botanical Survey of India? Hello, Purna. Hello. ఇద్దరు ఎవరు ఎవరు అనిల్ కుమారు మురళి ఉన్నాడు, ఇంకోరిద్దరు లీవ్ అయ్యారు. సరే, వేర్ ఇస్ దిస్ బొటానికల్ సర్వే ఆఫ్ ఇండియా, బిఎస్ఐ? వేర్ ఇస్ ద హెడ్ ఆఫీస్ ఆఫ్ బొటానికల్ సర్వే ఆఫ్ ఇండియా? ఈస్ good, Kolkata. In Kolkata, Botanical Survey of India, who is that director of Botanical Survey of India? Dr. S.K. Janaki Ammal. She belongs to Kerala. She is the director of Botanical Survey. She was the director of the Botanical Survey of India during 1970s, and she has collected so many plants that were used by the tribal people, but all these were kept under economic botany. So the sister branch of ethnobotany is an economic botany. So we cannot distinguish exactly that economic botany and ethnobotany. So ethnobotany, the word ethnobotany is applied to such cultural groups of tribal people. Economic botany can be uh, widely used for all groups of people, but after 10 years, so the credentials of the ethnobotany was fall down in the economic botany, so that Janaki Ammal, she has not got such importance. Later, after 10 years, during 1980s, this SK Jain, who belongs to Uttar Pradesh, SK Jain has promulgated the all the use of medicinal plants, for for these tribal people. Hence, he was considered as who? This S.K. Jain. S.K. Jain is considered as father of Indian ethnobotany. Actually, prior to S.K. Jain, Janaki Ammal has been contributed as a lot in this field, but all her services have got into economic botany. So the credit was goes to only S.K. Jain. Why? S.K. Jain has contributed in relation to tribal people, those who inhabited the central India. So he gave the main focus. He gained the main focus, or he has attempted on the tribal people, those who are inhabited the central India, that is at mostly at MP, Madhya Pradesh, and all those states. He collected and he has documented. He has contributed a lot in respect of ethnobotanical studies. His ethnobotanical studies has got the importance than Janaki Ammal. Actually, Janaki Ammal was the founder for the ethnobotanical studies in India. Who is the founder? Janaki Ammal was the founder to study of ethnobotanical studies. But as a father of ethnobotany of India, this credit goes to S.K. Jain. S.K. Jain. Why? Because S.K. Jain has studied or contributed as a whole in respect of taking some ethnic people, those who are living in central India, and he has documented so many plant species, so many plant species. Hence, the credit goes to him. So that when you asked who is the father of ethnobotany, Indian ethnobotany, then you have to say the name of SK Jain, not Janaki Ammal. SK Jain is the father of Indian ethnobotany. But in the initial stages of ethnobotanical studies, most of the ethnobotanical studies have included only description of the plants, only description of the plants with their name, local name, and botanical name in respect of the tribal people. Which tribal people? So this plant, so and so plant. So this take any one of the plant. This datura metal is used by datura metal. So the botanical name is Datura metal, family is Solanaceae. The common name or vernacular name. The vernacular name is different from common name. Common name is, you can see, call it as commonly called by all the people, by all people. Whereas vernacular name means the name which is called by that local people. లోకల్ పీపుల్. వెర్నాక్యులర్ నేమ్ అంటే వ్యవహారిక నామం. అక్కడ ఉండేటువంటి లోకల్ పీపుల్ దానిని ఏ విధంగా పిలుస్తారనేది వెర్నాక్యులర్ నేమ్ లేదా వ్యవహారిక నామం అంటాం. కామన్ నేమ్ అనేటువంటిది సాధారణ నేమ్. అది మన పుస్తకాల్లో కూడా మనం ఆ పేరునే రాస్తాం, గ్రంథస్థం చేస్తాం. పుస్తకాల్లో దొరికే పేరు అది కామన్ నేమ్. సో ఇంక్లూడింగ్ ఇట్స్ కామన్ నేమ్, వెర్నాక్యులర్ నేమ్, బొటానికల్ నేమ్, family, and used by which tribe. Because of this tribe, it is used by Savara, or it is used by Gadava, so on. Which tribe this plant is used for which disease or for which use? Not only disease, for any other use. They used to document. Those are the botanical studies in in beginning stages. But now these studies are let to have some importance. So these ethnobotanical studies have led to so many so many advantages in present days, during present days. What are those advantages? The ethnobotanical studies are led to the development of pharmacognosy and pharmacy, also pharmacognosy and phytochemistry, and also the to know the cultural, social, and economical status of the tribal people, and to suggest what are the developmental activities are to be taken in tribal areas. The ethnobotanist or the ethnobotanical studies can can pave the way or show the way for the recent advances. What are the recent advances? This ethnobotanical studies has laid a foundation stone on leads to development of pharmacy by pharmacognosy and phytochemistry. Because of these ethnobotanical practices or ethnobotanical plant pots are facilitates as raw drugs or raw material or crude drugs. By using these crude drugs, crude drugs, crude drug is nothing but the direct material from the plant. They use direct material from the plant to cure different ailments, different ailments by using their methods or by own practices. So these crude drugs are facilitate to development of pharmacognosy and phytochemistry. Pharmacognosy and phytochemistry ultimately lead to the development of pharmaceutical industry. Pharmaceutical industry. This is one aspect. And the second one is ethnobotanical studies provides to know the economic, cultural, and social status of their life. So these ethnobotanists can suggest the developmental activities that are need to develop the ethnobotanical communities. They can suggest to government. They can suggest to government. So this is another recent advance and advantage. Recent advance and advantage. And also he can notice who an ethnobotanist. An ethnobotanist can notice the traditional religious beliefs which are practiced by those tribal people. Resultantly, he can suggest the conservation and preservation of those genetic resources. By conservation and preservation of those genetic resources, it leads to ultimately conservation of biodiversity. So indirectly, knowingly or unknowingly, indirectly, these ethnobotanical studies provides the conservation of biodiversity. Ultimately, it provides conservation of biodiversity. An ethnobotanist can do all these things. He can notice, he can notice the plants that are practiced by the ethnic groups, ethnic groups. He can notice their cultural, social, and economic status. Thereby, he can report to the government or governmental organization for the better development and better welfare of the local people and tribal people. And he can suggest the methods of preservation and conservation of genetic resources that are used by the local people and ethnic groups. Ultimately, the original germplasm can be preserved. That is nothing but directly or indirectly, knowingly or unknowingly, the ethnobotanist can use of conservation of biodiversity. So this is the scope of biodiversity. Scope of ethnobotany. And you can see what are the main objectives. Why should we study the ethnobotany? What are the main objectives of ethnobotany? So the first doctorate in ethnobotany, why I am told that is, it paves the way and they shows the roadmap for the objectives of the ethnobotany. Barrows, 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 1900 within the brackets. He is the first recipient of doctorate in ethnobotany from University of Chicago. Chicago. His investigations are inspired. His investigations during the 1900s only. That is before or 120 years ago, a century ago, 120 years ago, during 1900s. This gentleman, who is that gentleman? Barrows, Barrows. He is the first recipient of doctorate in ethnobotany from University of Chicago. His which are inspired by the other ethnobotanists. So his research studies or ethnobotanical studies gave a valuable information, and it lays a roadmap. It shows map, or it shows ways how to study ethnobotany. How to study ethnobotany? Why should we study ethnobotany? What are the main objectives of ethnobotany? What are the different methodologies to study ethnobotany? We have to follow some methodologies to while study the ethnobotany. So, according to his, from the thesis of Barrows, who is the first recipient of doctorate in ethnobotany, inspired the studies of ethnobotany, later scientists. So they gave us some principles and objectives of ethnobotanical studies. To fulfill those purpose, you have to study the ethnobotany. So that are the main objectives of ethnobotany. Now we can see what are these main objectives of ethnobotany. You can write down. The first one, the objectives of ethnobotany, you have to write it down. The first one is, I will study out so as to convenience of your writing, your note it down. Later I will explain. The first objective of the ethnobotany is an extensive an extensive and intensive exploration studies at tribal habitations and forest areas to record first-hand information from ethnic people. So this is the first objective of the ethnobotany. I think that you have noted down. You have noted down or not? రాశారు కదా? So you see, I repeat it. You can see what you have write it down. An extensive and intensive exploration studies at tribal habitations and forest areas to record the first hand information from the tribal people. Did you understand? You have to conduct both extensive and intensive. Extensive means a long and short tours you have to conduct, and you have to record the first hand information. As I am rightly said, from last 2 or 3 classes, the information or the wonderful knowledge and plants was not documented. It is only transmitted through